Hello internet. In today's video it's going to be my June wrap up. I'm actually going to do this in two parts. One, because I have not been good at keeping up with what I'm supposed to be doing, so my idea of breaking wrap-ups into like two wrap-ups a month completely has failed so far. So I'm going to break it up now, not only because I want to spend a little more time telling you a few of my feelings about each book, but also because June was Pride Month, and therefore I kind of want to show a spotlight on books that had queer representation that I read in the month of June and have its own little video. So there are going to be two wrap-up videos for the month of June. This first one, which is going to talk about queer books or books with like queer characters in them, and then another one about the other books that I read this month that didn't have any queerness but were still pretty good. So we're going to talk about all the books that I read in total. I read a total of 18 books, 9 were on audiobook, 9 were in physical copy, and this video is going to be about all the queer books I read and how much I enjoyed them and what they were about. So the first book that I read in the month of June, which was actually the first book that I read in the month of June, is Lightning Struck Heart by T.J. Coolin, I think. Picture, of course, here for any of you guys who don't know what I'm talking about. I heard about this book from Book Roast. She talked about how much she liked it and she thought it was funny, and I agree the book is funny, and I do agree with her that this type of humor that is represented in this book is probably not going to be for everyone. So this book is about a young sorcerer, or a young wizard's apprentice actually, named Sam, and he is on wild adventures throughout this whole book. So this whole book mainly focuses on him and him going on this crazy adventure because the prince of the kingdom has been kidnapped by a dragon, and so he and his two best friends, one of which is a talking unicorn and one of which is a giant troll that likes to smash things, are going to go on an adventure to try to find them. They're also going to be accompanied by the shining knight of the kingdom, this guy named Ryan, who Sam has a giant crush on. So of course this has a couple male-male romances thrown in there for you to like. There are other queer characters represented, like there's an asexual character, there's a trans character, there's a lot of queerness and characters going on, but most of it is revolving around this will they, won't they male-male relationship between the main character Sam and this other character Ryan. Now the part where this is going to get a little iffy for some readers is that a lot of this book has humor based. It's a comedy, right? And a lot of the humor is focused on body humor and sexual humor. Mainly sexual humor, and then where sexual humor relates to body humor. So if you're not a fan of sex jokes, crude jokes, stuff like that, then you probably won't like this book. And despite it having so much sexual humor, it actually isn't a smutty book. It's more focused on the romance, but distracts you with a bunch of sexual humor going on, and it really does focus on the will they, won't they, because there are some issues for why they can't be, and there's going to be some awesome moments of you being like, ooh, I really want them to be. So overall, I thought it was a pretty decent book. There were a few things that I was a little about, mainly about how the characters were treated Sam at some points, because Sam didn't want to admit his crush to Ryan, like he didn't want to go through a confession, and I kind of didn't like how everyone pushed Sam to confess, especially since Ryan was in his own relationship, and it felt like a lot of times they're blaming Sam for Sam not confessing, where Sam was really like, he is in a relationship and I do not want to like be a homeworker, I don't want to like get involved, that's not right to try to push myself on a person who is in another relationship, even though we all know Ryan likes him more, but like, you know, that sort of thing. So that little, the cheaty aspect for Ryan and him trying to come on to Sam while he still was involved with someone, and the fact that people like to push Sam towards Ryan even though Sam was like, he's in a relationship, I can't do that. Those were the only big aspects that I didn't like. Otherwise, it's a pretty solid book. It is pretty funny if you are a fan of body humor and sexual crass sort of jokes, then you can potentially have a good time with this book. The second book that I am going to talk about is We Are the Ants by Sean David Hutcherson. This, of course, was a reread for me. This is the third time I've reread this. I read this along with Darlene at Howl's Reading Castle and Yasmin at Yasmin's Bookshelf. We are hosting like a 3-month readathon where we are rereading or reading for the first time Sean David Hutcherson books in this attempt to bring everybody more into how amazing the Shawnee Darko universe is, and then have people who are also aware that these books are connected in their own way, and so that we can talk about little connections and all the Illuminati stuff that's going on in his work, the conspiracy theories. So of course, if you haven't heard of We Are the Ants, I highly suggest you go and read this. This is about a boy named Henry. He is 16. For the past 3 years, he has been kidnapped by aliens and experimented on periodically through these 3 years. In his last abduction attempt, they took him and they showed him that the world only has 144 days before like imminent destruction, and it is up to Henry to save the world because he has to press a button. So this whole book is discussing Henry's mental health. It has a lot of different triggers, triggers for mental health, suicide, assault, stuff like that, mental abuse, things like that are happening in this book. It is a really good book. It's a very poignant book. It is a book worth reading, and it has that element of contemporary but also a fantastical element that really makes it all the better because there are aliens as well. So I highly suggest you read this book. Next, we have a graphic novel, and that is Witch Boy by Molly Cox Ostrag. This was just a buy that I bought this month because I heard one or two things about it. And so this book is about a young boy who belongs to a family of magic people and magic users. And in his family, traditionally females are the ones with magic and are witches, and males shapeshift and turn into different animals. Now he is a boy and he identifies as such. However, he has magic, and in his family doesn't really believe him or agree with him and tell him, no, you can't do magic, that's girl stuff, you can only ever shapeshift. So this book talks a lot about gender norms and how dangerous gender norms can be to kids, telling kids that you can't do this because you're a boy, or you can't do this because you're a girl, and stuff like that, and how damaging it can be. Of course, there's like a monster, and this character has to fight against it and use their witch abilities to do so. But the main underlying concept of this is that you cannot enforce gender roles and gender norms onto kids because you're gonna end up damaging some people along the way. So of course, there's a lot of different queer characters and queerness just in this book in general, but this book mainly focuses on the idea of gender norms and how dangerous they can be to a developing child who just wants to do magic because that is what he's good at. Next, we have Motor Crush. I read volume 1 and volume 2. I only own volume 1 though. Motor Crush was an interesting read. This has a female-female relationship in it. Now, Motor Crush, it's gonna make me sound crazy when I describe this book to you, but it takes place in a world where riding motorcycles is like the biggest thing in the world. So our main character is a motorcyclist, and she is a racer. She is a part of this Grand Prix, and she's an amateur racer trying to race professionally, and she is a rising star. However, she also races illegally with gangs so that she can get this special substance called Crush. Crush is a motorcycle accelerant. It makes your motorcycle go super fast. The thing is, she doesn't need it for her motorcycle, she needs it for herself because it's her medicine. Now this stuff with any normal person will make them explode, but for her, for some reason, she cannot go without it. It's like an EpiPen. Like, she is like a diabetic. She needs this because her sugar levels get too low, and if she doesn't take Crush, she could die. So the whole thing is about her trying to figure out where she's from, why she's a freaking motorcycle, stuff like that. I mean, like, this girl is actually a motorcycle. Not in a, oh, she transforms like Transformers, but more in a, how a werewolf is a wolf sort of motorcycle. That is how this girl is a motorcycle. A werewolf is like a wolf as this main character is to a motorcycle. I mean, she runs like super fast, like flash fast at some points. I'm pretty sure she made skid marks by running so fast that looked like a car. There's one imagery where by running so fast her shadow looks like a motorcycle, and then there's a scene where I'm pretty sure her blood looks like motor oil. Like, this girl is a motorcycle. I also like the female-female relationship. It has this essence of, it has a history to it. So the girl that she once dated is now, she's back in their lives. They're back together, but not really, because, you know, they got some history. So there's still this female-female relationship that's there, but not really there, because they have history and stuff. So there's like a bunch of drama there as well. This is a really good graphic novel. It is stunning. It is stunning. It is so great, beautiful, and it's also pretty entertaining. So I highly suggest this if you are a fan of graphic novels and you also want a graphic novel that has a female-female relationship in it. A couple female-female relationships in it. So yeah, that's gonna. We have Poet X by Elizabeth S. Viego. This is done in slam poetry style, so it is a story told all in poems, and it is all written out in slam poetry style. So I highly suggest you go and read the audiobook. The audiobook is read by an author, as I personally believe all poetry is better appreciated if read out loud, and that mainly has to do with the fact I don't really like poetry and I can understand it better if it's read out loud, but also slam poetry is meant to be read out loud, so I feel like you get more out of it if you're listening to the audiobook and the author put in the beats where they're supposed to be. So this follows an American girl. She is Dominican, and she is talking about what her life is like, having a Dominican brown Latin body, going to school, how people view her, how her mom views her, like what it's like to have to fight every day of your life to be respected. And then she falls in love with slam poetry, and she kind of uses that now to express herself and how she is feeling. Now, where the queer aspect comes in is that she has a twin brother who is in love with a boy. So she discusses how it feels to have this twin brother, how she feels about her twin brother, and her twin brother have their own complicated relationship. So we do have queer representation in this book. I think it's really good. Again, I highly suggest you read it on audiobook because it is slam poetry, and I feel like that's just the best experience you're going to have with this book. So we have my absolute favorite book. Like, I finally have a book where I could say, well, I have a few books. I think I have like 2 or 3 books now that if someone asked me, Chinoa, if there is a book that you could say was like truly to your personality, a character that you would identify with, that you would be like, that is me as a book character, I now have a book. And that is In Other Lands by Sarah Reese Brennan. This is so good. This is one of my favorite books. Like, this is the book, I read this at the beginning of the month. I read it on audiobook, and then I automatically bought a copy after I read it on audiobook. And then when I received my copy, I was like, let me reread this again, but I stopped myself because I realized, hey, I probably should give other books a chance, but it was just so good that I wanted to reread it. The moment it was like the end, I was like, bitch, no, start over. This book is so good. It's one of my favorites. It is great. So this book is a portal fantasy. This book follows a boy named Eli. He is not a very likable character, and that's what makes him so likable. Eli is very straightforward and because of his straightforwardness, comes off as really mean. He can't deal with stupid people. He cannot be bothered with them. So Eli ends up on a field trip one day, and he sees this gigantic wall. And just so that you get like a feel of how Eli is as a character, the whole time on this field trip while they're driving them to the middle of the nowhere, Eli is swearing up and down that these teachers must be about to murder them, because why aren't they explaining where they are taking these kids on this field trip? When they get to this destination where there is a giant wall, Eli is made aware that he is one one of the only kids who can see this giant wall, because this giant wall signifies that you can cross over into this other world, right? And he says, I don't think I'm special because I definitely cannot walk through a wall, referencing the fact that all the other kids who can't see the wall are just walking through it. He is very straightforward and blunt and kind of mean, and I absolutely love it. So this book follows Eli and his years in this world. He ends up crossing over, and in this Squirtle fantasy world we have elves, harpies, all of these different things, and it's very militaristic. So he is being inducted into this military school where there are 2 tracks, one for the warrior track and one for the counselor track, and he ends up being on the counselor track because this boy cannot stand fighting. He's really bad at it. Anyway, he ends up making friends and stuff like that, but the main thing is that the reason why they're now in this military school is because a lot of battles and wars are happening between the different races all the time, because none of them know how to talk to each other, and all of them are making assumptions about each other, so they're always fighting, which is why they bring in all of these kids and they raise them to be warriors so that they can fight these battles for these adults who keep messing up stuff. And of course, Eli is having none of this shit because he's done with them. So his job is basically to fix the world because everyone else is stupid. And it follows him throughout his many years. So there's like little chapters of breaks and stuff, like different parts where it goes through his years. I think it starts at 11 and ends sometime where he's 17. I'm trying to look for one of these breaks because the breaks have little pictures, and you know how I feel about pictures. So like there's a picture, and like this is the age 14. So it covers his whole life basically while he's at this school, and like all this different stuff. A bunch of different amazing characters. It definitely opens your eyes to different things. Like he has an elf friend, which in their society and in elf society, they're matriarchal, and they are basically the opposite of misogyny and patriarchy, because I don't know what the word would be, but they're misogynistic to males because they don't think males are capable of stuff. So it's like, it opens amazing conversations there. It's just really good. It's really good. It's really good. Just buy this book, read this book, listen to it on audiobook, buy a physical copy, read it. More people need to talk about it. Like, Eli is just such an unlikable character that he is adorable, and I love him with all my heart, and he is like my favorite character now. Like, I got a new car and I named it after this character because that is how much I love this character. Okay, he's my favorite. So I'm gonna stop gushing about this book and we're gonna talk about some others. Next we have Not Your Sidekick by C.B. Lee. This was a reread for me. This follows a girl called Jessica Tran. She is a part of a superhero family. Now in her world, it came down to like a World War III. Things went really bad, and one of the outcomes of it is that people now have powers. Everything's pretty decently established once again, and we're now having a proper civilization. But like I said, one of the outcomes was that superpowers aren't uncommon. Secret identities are a really big thing, but like, it's common for people to have powers and keep them in secret. Her parents are 2 C-list superheroes and are pretty famous in the town that they work, and they fight against these villains called the Mischiefs. Now Jessica feels really out of place. Not only is she a middle child, but she is the child who's kind of the most disappointing, and she doesn't really know how to feel about that. So she doesn't really have superpowers. She's not a brainiac kid like her younger brother, and she kind of just wants to find a place. She ends up getting an internship with a tech company, and it turns out she ends up working for the 2 villains that are her parents' mortal nemesis. She ends up finding out conspiracies along with this other girl about what the government's really doing, what's really happening with the superhero-dom, what's really happening to villains, like all the shit that's going on, how they like rewrite history and all that sort of stuff. And then there's a female-female relationship. Jessica herself is bisexual, and she falls in love with this girl who she has a crush on, and of course we're gonna have a romance thing there with her and this other girl. So we have a female-female relationship that's really cute and really sweet. So it's really good. I reread this because I recently bought the second book in the series, which focuses on one of the characters mentioned in this, which is a transgender male who has his own story. I'm not going to say anything about it because it's kind of a spoiler if you haven't read this book. But yes, so I reread this book so that I could hopefully read that one sometime in the future. For the other books that I have mentioned, I'm including them in this half of the wrap up, even though unlike the other books that I mentioned previously in this, they are not what is obviously queer. Okay, so all the other books are obviously queer. We have obvious queer characters, we have obvious characters who are identifying as such. Like in Other Lands, he identifies openly as bisexual, that he openly has relationships with different people of differing genders, stuff like that. Everything in those other books is very open, it's very obvious, and such as. In these books, it's a little bit more questioning, but I'm including them because I think it's just as important to have characters in your books who are obviously gay as characters who are kind of gay in the background, because it's gonna sound weird, but it's my personal belief that queerness is just everywhere. It's a part of the world, right? And as such, it doesn't necessarily need to be in the spotlight, but it should always be present in your stories because it is a part of the world. So I'm including these 3 books because I feel like there's enough of a presence that it's pretty obvious, even if it isn't clearly stated word for word, this is this, okay? If that makes sense. I think it's just as important to have it ingrained in your stories just there naturally as it is to obviously state it and give representation in the most obvious way possible, right? Okay, I hope I'm making my point. Anyway, let's talk about these other books. So the first other one I'm going to talk about is Certain Dark Things by Sylvia Moreno. This is about a Mexican vampire. So this is more of a crime noir, okay? So it is a vampire book, but the story, the plot has crime noir beats, so it's not going to be like regular supernatural stuff. If you like crime noir, you're going to like this. If you like interesting vampire stories, you're probably going to like this. This follows a Aztec vampire, and she is on the run from this different type of vampire that are trying to murder her because gang violence between them, because vampires have their own little mafia gangs, and there's different vampire types, and her type of vampire didn't like their type of vampire, and they got into a scuffle, and now she's on the run from them, and they're running through Mexico, and she ends up meeting this boy who is like a garbage collector. He picks up trash on the side of the road. He's pretty homeless, but he picks up trash, and then it's a whole story of like crime noir. The interesting parts about it is like, one, I like the idea of having supernatural creatures and beings in other types of story, like supernatural creatures in just like contemporary romance and like in crime noirs and like stuff like that, right? I like when we have one element from one genre mixed with an element from another. So I like that concept, and I also like that in this world vampires weren't just one thing, but there were many different types of vampires, sort of like a species deviation, right? Like how we have different races of people or different species of big cats. We have different types of vampires who feed differently, who look differently, who act differently, all who have different abilities, stuff like that. So I like that. I think this is a pretty decent book. The ending was a little for me, but otherwise I think it's a pretty strong book. If you like crime noir, then you're probably gonna like this. If you're interested in like different types of vampires, you're going to be interested in this. The reason why I added to this queer video is because the main character, there are several points in time where she is asked whether or not she likes boys or likes men, and she doesn't really give a definitive answer, and then she never makes a definitive answer. While she does have relationships with a man in the course of this book, it is still left very open for what her sexuality is, and given the way that she talks about having past orgies with blood and alcohol because that used to be fun and she was a party girl, and the way that she kind of avoids any questions when people try to definitively pin down her sexuality, I'm gonna put her under questioning or maybe pan or something like that, because like I said, she didn't automatically go no homo, so that's enough for me, okay? Next I have Aru Shah and the End of Time by Roshani Chokshi. I love this book. One reason why I love this book is just because Aru is just such a Slytherin. Like, she is one of the most Slytherin characters I've seen in a while, where they're not being a menacing kid. Like, Cass Brecker is a Slytherin, right? But like, you cannot say he is not menacing. Aru Shah is a Slytherin character, but she ain't menacing, she's just a lot of fun. So Aru Shah and the End of Time revolves around this girl Aru, and she lives in a museum that has a lot of Indian historical artifacts, and she kind of gets pushed into the situation by kids at her school who are confronting her for the fact that she lies a lot. She ends up lighting this lamp that lets out an evil demon, and now she has 9 days to try to save the world from this evil demon. Along the way, she has a few companions and stuff like that. Also, she's really, really good at lying, and that is actually a talent that helps her at the end of the day, and that is probably my favorite characteristic about her. Like, lying isn't good, but the fact that Aru does it like it's second nature all the time and is really good at it. Sometimes her lies are a little ridiculous, but she is so confident that I absolutely love that character trait. Also, I love the fact that, like I said, she's really Slytherin, so I love the fact that a lot of time when they're in dangerous situations, she's just like, should I just leave these guys here and run for the sake of my own life? And she's like, no, that would be mean. But she always thinks about it, and I'd be like, that'd be me as a main character as well. So the reason why I'm adding this here is because of two scenes. There's one scene where basically there's a siren effect on Aru and this other girl that she is with. They are on this adventure together. There is this kind of demon thing. It has this illusion that makes it look really, really stunning, and Aru is obsessed with this woman before she figures out it's just illusion. Like, Aru's just like all into this woman, and the other girl that's with her is not at all. Like, the other girl's really wary. She has not fallen for the illusion. So I'm like, why did Aru fall for the illusion of a pretty lady, but the other female girl did not? So like, there was one thing there. Like, Aru openly likes boys, but there were a few points where I was like, Aru, why were you so into the illusion of the pretty lady, but the other girl was not? Obviously doesn't work evenly on everybody. So there was that one scene where I was just like, I don't know what's going on with Aru, but okay. And then there was another scene where the girl that Aru is with, Minnie, talks about her brother and the fact that her brother has a picture of one of his soccer teammates under his pillow. And given that this takes place in America, I'm pretty sure it is not a co-ed soccer team. So yeah, that boy gay. So that is what I mean. Like, it's not an obvious thing, but it's enough for me, and it was there and present in the book because it is something that naturally occurs in life, in the world. So I appreciate it, and I am counting it. And then the last book that I read is Seconds by Brian Lee O'Malley. This is about a woman who worked at a restaurant that she helped kind of get off the ground. She wants to start her own restaurant, and she's really just having a lot of life issues. She ends up finding out that there is a house spirit, and this house spirit gives her the special mushroom that lets her go back in time and rewrite a mistake. She ends up stealing all these mushrooms and trying to rewrite her life to make it the most perfect life in the world. Honestly, she just makes a bunch of dumb mistakes, and you're just like, you're doing all of this wrong. You probably should stop. But of course she's going to continue. The reason why I add this in queer is this is the most stretch that I'm making this entire video, which is why I left it for last. But she makes a friend with this other girl, and at one point they have a conversation, and she's like, hey, who do you like? And the girl's like, I don't know, I could like both boys and girls. I'm questioning it. And I was like, that's queer enough for me. So this book doesn't really focus on that character at all. She's kind of just a background main character, if you know what I mean. It mostly focuses on this main character and her abundance of mistakes and not understanding how life works. But that was enough for me, because like I said, it should be a part of your story naturally. It doesn't have to be a big pinnacle point for me. It naturally occurs in life, so therefore it should naturally occur in your story, okay? It should occur in your story. I should see it somewhere. I should be like, yeah, that's queer. So those were all the books that I read in the month of June that had some sort of queer aspect to them. whether very, very prominent like in some of these, or kind of a stretch, but I'm gonna count it anyway in a few of these. So if there are any recommendations for books that you think have like some sort of queer coding to them, or are obviously queer that you think I should read, comment down below and let me know some good recommendations for other books that I should probably invest some time into, invest some of my money into. You know, I'm always up for extending my wish list even larger than it already is. So if you like what you're seeing here and you want to continue to see more, click on those bunny bunnies down below, and goodbye, internet.